Apply these 7 things and watch the narcissist disappear from your life forever. Want to know the quickest way to make a narcissist lose all interest in you and disappear on their own? There are 7 specific shifts that cause this to happen, and when they're applied correctly, the effect is unmistakable. The final one is so powerful that the narcissist doesn't just disengage, they actively avoid you, as if staying away is the only way to protect themselves. Most people assume the only way to deal with a narcissist is to argue back, defend themselves, or finally win the conversation. In reality, those responses do the opposite. They keep the narcissist invested because attention, conflict, and emotional intensity are exactly what they thrive on. What actually works is becoming calm, grounded, and emotionally unreachable. When you stop reacting, you stop being useful to them. You remove the emotional fuel they depend on, and without that fuel, their interest naturally dies. This isn't about playing games or getting revenge. It's about preserving your peace, your clarity, and your mental health. Narcissists function like emotional parasites. They draw energy from your reactions, your anger, your fear, your sadness, even your attempts to explain yourself. As long as you keep responding, they always come back for more. Psychology and research consistently show that narcissists operate from a sense of entitlement. In their internal world, you are not an independent person with agency. You are a resource, a source of emotional supply they believe they have access to whenever they want. But the illusion collapses the moment you stop participating. When you no longer react, chase, or justify yourself, their control evaporates. That's when the dynamic finally breaks. The first and most important shift is ending emotional reactions altogether. Narcissists are not driven by love or hate. They are driven by stimulation. It doesn't matter to them whether you're crying, pleading, arguing, or trying to explain your side. Any strong emotional response tells them they still matter and still have power. Think of it the same way you think about reinforcing bad behavior. When a tantrum gets attention, it becomes effective. Narcissists operate on the same principle, just with adult language and far less emotional maturity. When you react, they feel dominant. When you don't, they lose their leverage. At first, they will likely escalate. They may provoke, insult, guilt trip, or suddenly promise change. All of it is an attempt to extract a response. But when you stay emotionally neutral, no anger, no hurt, no enthusiasm, they begin to deflate. Without an audience, the performance loses its purpose. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about reaching a genuine place where their words and behavior no longer penetrate you. That emotional detachment is real power. The second shift is practicing true no contact, not the watered-down version most people attempt. Many believe they're in no contact while still leaving cracks in the door. Real no contact means zero communication and zero monitoring. That includes direct messages, indirect communication through other people, checking their social media, driving past places connected to them, or asking mutual friends for updates. Every one of these actions keeps the energetic connection alive. Think of it like security. A locked door means nothing if the windows are wide open. Narcissists are opportunistic. They look for access, not effort. If contact is easy, they stay interested. If it's difficult or impossible, they move on. That's why full no contact requires blocking numbers, blocking social media, and sometimes changing contact information entirely. It also means setting boundaries with friends and making it clear you don't want information exchanged in either direction. The most challenging part is stopping yourself from checking on them. Every glance at their profile weakens your boundary. Even if they don't know consciously, the connection remains active. But when you disappear completely, you become unreachable. Narcissists cannot manipulate what they cannot access. They may test the silence briefly, but when nothing works, they eventually disengage. The third shift is ending the habit of defending and explaining yourself. Narcissists provoke accusations not because they believe them, but because explanations keep you talking. The moment you start justifying yourself, you step into their courtroom and accept them as the judge. That's the trap. The more you explain, the more they twist your words and keep the conversation going. When you stop explaining, the dynamic changes instantly. If they label you selfish and you respond with calm neutrality or acknowledge without engaging, their strategy collapses. Their manipulation relies on your need to be understood and validated. When that need disappears, so does their control. Silence, brevity, and emotional neutrality remove the incentive for them to continue. Without access to your inner world, they have nothing left to work with. And that's when they lose interest for good. The moment their opinion stops carrying weight in your mind, their ability to wound you disappears. You no longer need their validation to understand your character, your integrity, or your capacity to love. Trying to prove yourself to them was never going to work anyway, because your sincerity, loyalty, or devotion were never the point. That said, this doesn't mean allowing real-world harm. If false accusations threaten your livelihood or reputation in a professional setting, you respond clearly and appropriately. But in personal dynamics, disengagement is often the strongest position. When you stop explaining yourself, you communicate something far more powerful than words ever could. They no longer get to define you. And that loss of authority is deeply unsettling for a narcissist. The fourth shift is reaching genuine emotional neutrality. This cannot be performed or imitated because narcissists instinctively detect insincerity. Real indifference comes only after deep healing, when their actions, relationships, and opinions no longer register as meaningful to you. You stop monitoring their life, imagining their thoughts, or hoping they regret losing you. They become emotionally insignificant, just another person who no longer has access to your inner world. Getting there requires grief, real grief, for the illusion you once believed in. You must mourn the version of them you thought existed, and accept that the bond you imagined was never what it seemed. Once that grief is processed, peace replaces longing. You begin to see them clearly, not as powerful or enigmatic, but as profoundly insecure and fractured. Their cruelty reveals emptiness, their control reveals fear, and with that understanding, their behavior stops feeling personal. Indifference is not hatred. Hatred still keeps the connection alive. Indifference is emotional silence. You stop trying to analyze them, rescue them, or correct them. They simply fade out of your emotional reality, and that is where real freedom begins. The fifth step is a full redirection of your energy toward your own life. This is where healing stops being theoretical and becomes tangible. You no longer live in reaction to them. You stop curating your life to provoke jealousy, chasing validation through achievements, or wondering how your choices will be perceived. Your focus turns inward and forward. You pursue goals that matter to you. Surround yourself with people who feel safe and kind. And invest in passions that were neglected while you were managing chaos. Your time stops revolving around the past and starts building a future. As you grow, something shifts in your presence. Your energy becomes calmer, brighter, more self-contained. Narcissists despise this transformation because it destroys the belief that you depend on them. They thrive on your pain and longing, but when you are fulfilled and grounded, their influence dissolves. You stop comparing yourself, stop competing, stop explaining, and stop caring. That inner peace becomes a barrier they cannot cross, protecting you from being pulled back into old dynamics. The sixth step is releasing the urge to expose them or change them. This is often one of the most difficult stages because your sense of fairness demands accountability. You want others to know the truth. You want their behavior to be recognized and condemned. But every attempt to expose them keeps your energy tied to theirs. Even negative attention feeds their need for relevance. When confronted, they often pivot into victimhood, reshaping the narrative until you appear bitter or unstable. Their charm and preemptive storytelling mean your truth may be dismissed as obsession. It's unjust, but it's common. The same applies to trying to fix them. Articles, explanations, pleas for therapy. None of it creates insight in someone unwilling to self-reflect. It only keeps you emotionally invested. Their growth is not your responsibility, and their lack of empathy is not something you can teach. When you stop trying to rescue, reform, or reveal them, you reclaim your energy. You step out of their story entirely and become fully present in your own. That is the real triumph. Living well isn't about punishing them. It's about restoring yourself. Your peace is the one thing they can never take. The seventh and final shift is becoming completely unavailable as a source of emotional supply. This is the highest level of detachment. It's not just physical distance, but emotional impermeability. Their messages no longer provoke urgency. Their insults no longer land. Their praise no longer hooks you. You remain steady, composed, and self-contained. You offer no reactions, no anger, no affection, no pity, no explanations. Not out of bitterness, but out of strength. You become emotionally still, grounded in your own center. At this point, you don't merely cause a narcissist to lose interest. You remove yourself from the entire system that allowed them to feed. And once that happens, their hold ends permanently. Eventually, you stop drawing them in at all. Narcissistic people are highly attuned to where emotional energy is available. And the moment they sense there is nothing left for them to extract, they disengage. You fade from the radar of toxic individuals while simultaneously becoming more visible to people who are emotionally healthy. Your presence begins attracting those who resonate with calm rather than chaos, connection rather than control. Emotional unavailability to manipulation isn't an act or a mask you wear. It's the natural outcome of deep internal healing. It comes from recognizing that your peace has real value and refusing to spend it on those who deplete it. When manipulation no longer reaches you, freedom becomes your baseline, and life opens up without their shadow trailing behind you. So this is the full picture. The 7 ways that ultimately cause narcissists to walk away for good. You stop feeding them emotional reactions. You establish no contact and maintain it without exceptions. You release the need to defend or explain yourself. You cultivate true indifference. You redirect your energy fully into your own life. You stop trying to expose or reform them. And finally, you remove yourself as a source of emotional supply altogether. None of this is about punishment or revenge. It's about restoring your sense of self, protecting your joy, and rebuilding your self-respect. When these shifts take place, you don't just lose their attention, you regain your freedom. The objective was never to hurt them. It was always to heal yourself. Sometimes the most powerful act is leaving quietly and never returning, not out of hatred, but out of self-love. You don't owe them closure, explanations, or emotional access. What you owe yourself is peace. As you disengage from their games and refuse to respond to the chaos they create, something remarkable happens. You become untouchable. Calm replaces reactivity. Groundedness replaces confusion. Independence replaces fear. That's when true victory occurs, not by defeating them, but by choosing yourself. And if this message resonates, let it remind you to keep learning, keep growing, and keep choosing peace daily. The life that exists beyond their control is far more beautiful and expansive than anything you were promised inside the cycle. Once you finally step out, clarity starts emerging in ways you didn't expect. You begin to see how much of your life was spent trying to earn affection from someone who was never capable of giving it. You recognize how often you explained yourself, hoping for understanding, only to be met with distortion or dismissal. The arguments, the confusion, the sudden tenderness followed by cruelty. None of it was a reflection of your worth. It was part of a system designed to keep you trapped. Narcissists create emotional snares that slowly erode your confidence and make you doubt your own value. When you break free, the emotional atmosphere changes. Everything feels lighter, cleaner, more breathable. The silence that once terrified you becomes a place of refuge. In the beginning, that quiet can feel like grief. You may miss the intensity, even the turmoil, because your nervous system learned to associate chaos with connection. What you're missing isn't love, it's the emotional adrenaline. Trauma bonds wire the brain to crave the very source of pain. But as time passes, the mental fog lifts. Rest comes easier. Laughter returns without effort. Safety begins to feel natural again. These are signs of real healing. The narcissist may believe they damaged you, but in truth, they pushed you toward awakening. They never expect the people they exploit to rise. They expect you to stay stuck, replaying the past, waiting for answers or apologies that never come. The most liberating realization is that you don't need closure from them. You don't need an apology. You don't need acknowledgement or accountability to move forward. Their apologies were tactics, not truth. Once you see that clearly, waiting ends. Power returns to you. Healing from narcissistic abuse is not instant, but it is profoundly worth it. It's like stepping out of a dark tunnel after years underground. At first, the light feels overwhelming. Then colors reappear. Small joys resurface. Quiet mornings feel sacred instead of empty. You remember who you were before the manipulation and self-doubt took hold. As your healing deepens, your energy changes, and so do the people you attract. Those who drain you begin to fall away naturally, while emotionally healthy individuals recognize and respect your peace. Chaos stops feeling exciting. Calm becomes home. You realize that love does not require pain, instability, or fear. Real love is steady, kind, and safe. Narcissists cannot exist in that environment. They need confusion and control to feel alive. When you stop providing that, they lose interest and move on in search of someone who still reacts. Let them go. You were never meant to fill their emptiness. You are not their healer, their rescuer, or their emotional lifeline. You are here to live freely, fully, and at peace. You were never meant to rescue them or repair what was broken inside them. The purpose of that experience was never about saving them. It was about recognizing where you handed over your power and learning how to guard it forever. That's why what you're going through isn't simply recovery. It's a complete internal shift. The version of you who accepted disrespect has faded away. The one who kept over-explaining has learned the strength of silence. The one who pleaded for affection has learned how to pour love inward first. You didn't just survive, you changed. You became someone who no longer performs for scraps of validation because you learned how to nourish yourself. You discovered that peace isn't dull or empty. It's holy. There will still be moments when old feelings surface. A memory may appear out of nowhere. A song, a phrase, or a familiar name might stir something inside you. But instead of unraveling, you pause. You breathe, and you remember that you made it through. You're no longer trapped in their emotional gravity. That realization runs deep, like reclaiming a piece of yourself that was once taken. Each time you choose not to react, you reclaim more ground. Each time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen your freedom. Each time you walk away without defending your worth, you affirm it. And every time you meet your own reflection and realize you no longer need their approval, you win. That's real triumph, not loud, not performative, but steady and rooted in your spirit. With time, the questions fall away. You stop wondering if they think about you. You stop searching for reasons or explanations that never truly existed. You realize you were trying to understand something that was never built on love or logic. Narcissists are driven by fear. Fear of being overlooked, fear of being exposed, fear of being ordinary. Their confidence was a disguise for emptiness. You don't need to analyze them anymore. Their behavior already told the story. This new phase of your life isn't about revenge. It's about renewal. You are stepping into the version of yourself they tried to diminish, the one who knows their value, protects their peace, and trusts their inner knowing. You begin listening to that inner voice you once ignored, the one that tried to warn you early on. Self-doubt softens. Self-trust returns. You stop apologizing for boundaries that protect you. You stop shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. You start living with clarity, courage, and emotional freedom. And that's when they truly lose. Not when you confront them, not when you expose them, but when their name no longer stirs anything inside you. That's the final separation. They no longer have access to your emotions, your thoughts, or your spirit. You have moved completely beyond their reach. If you're still standing in the confusion or pain, don't lose heart. Healing isn't instant, but it is happening. Every day you maintain no contact. Every day you resist reacting. Every day you choose peace over turmoil. You move closer to freedom. Don't measure your progress by how rarely you think of them. Measure it by how little weight those thoughts carry now. You are no longer the person they first encountered. You are more aware, more grounded, and far stronger than you realize. In the end, that experience taught you something invaluable: how to guard your energy, how to trust your intuition, and how to honor your peace. Pain was the lesson, but healing is the completion. You don't need closure from them because you already closed that door yourself. Now it's time to live, to build a life rooted in honesty, love, and stillness. A life where your heart finally feels safe, whole, and free.